Not every news drop makes noise. Sometimes it feels more like a door closing inside Santa Clara, a conversation in the hallway, or one small move that exposes a much bigger concern. And today feels exactly like that for the 49ers. Safety help is entering the building. A coach is pointing to a linebacker who may be climbing out of the shadows. Brock Purdy is back in the MVP conversation, and a rookie is already getting attention from the people who matter. This feels like inside work, like fine-tuning a contender. Subscribe now because the Niners building is moving. All right, this is the detail that changes the mood in the room. The 49ers are reportedly signing Ashtyn Davis, formerly of the Dolphins, to strengthen a position already needing attention, safety. And to make room, they are releasing running back Jermar Jefferson. On the surface, it may look like an ordinary OTA roster move, but when you start putting the pieces together, it gets bigger. Davis is not walking in as a guaranteed savior. He was a third-round selection by the Jets in 2020, spent much of his career in New York, signed with Miami in 2025, and has 84 career games, 240 tackles, 9 interceptions, and 19 passes defended. Those numbers show real NFL experience. He is not some raw projection. He is not simply another body for practice. He has been out there. He has played real Sundays. He has been tested. And why does that mean so much for San Francisco? Because the Niners could not go into 2026 acting like safety was already solved. Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, and Marcus Sigel were sitting at the top of that group, and that picture created more questions than confidence. John Lynch had already acknowledged after the draft that the team wanted a safety, but the right opportunity never came together. So when this signing arrives now, it feels like a late adjustment, sure, but also like a quiet admission. They knew this position needed more help. The behind-the-scenes piece that really gets my attention is the timing. During OTAs, when a team suddenly signs somebody, sometimes performance is driving it, sometimes the internal evaluation is changed, and sometimes an injury is buried somewhere inside the story. We just saw that with the recent running back situation. Isaac Guerendo tore his pec last month, and San Francisco quickly needed bodies for practice. So there is a possibility Davis is coming in because somebody in that safety room is not fully right, or because the staff realized they needed another option immediately. I'm going to be honest with the fan base. Davis does not erase the concern by himself. Last season, he started 12 games, finished with 63 tackles and 1 interception, and allowed 2 touchdowns. That is a helpful profile, competitive, experienced, playable. But this is not a name that completely changes the shape of the defense on paper. His real value is giving this team a bigger margin for error. For a team fighting at the top of the NFC, you cannot allow one vulnerable position to become an open invitation for opposing offenses. If Raheem Morris can lift that group, great. But Ashtyn Davis walking in tells me the 49ers are not just sitting back and praying for a miracle. They are moving. They are adjusting, searching for an answer before that weakness becomes a September headline. Then we go from the roster board to one of those clues coaches usually do not give away for nothing. K.J. Wright spoke to reporters, and when a linebackers coach chooses to highlight a young name during OTAs, I pay attention. Not because padless practices decide a starting job, but because those comments show who is starting to earn trust inside the building. Wright said Jalen Graham and Tatum Bethune stop by his office every morning to make sure they are aligned with him. That may sound small from the outside, but inside an organization, it matters. A player who seeks out his coach, asks questions, adjusts, returns to the field, and applies them quickly starts to show up. And Graham was the player Wright singled out as somebody to watch. The strongest statement was simple. Graham has looked phenomenal. Wright talked about the way he bends, the way he is seeing the game, and his footwork. That is not meaningless press conference praise. For a linebacker, those 3 things tell a story. Flexibility to fit angles, vision to avoid being one step late, a base that allows him to change direction without losing balance. And if he can do that while playing Mike because of Luke Gifford's concussion, the 49ers could be finding more value than they originally expected. Graham was a 7th-round pick out of Purdue in 2023. He spent time with San Francisco, was waived before the 2024 season, briefly landed on Washington's practice squad, and then returned to the Niners. That path is not glamorous. That is survival. He has 15 career games with 10 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Modest numbers, no doubt, but the NFL is packed with players who only needed one opening to turn persistence into a real role. The most interesting part is the versatility. Wright mentioned that Graham played nickel in college and said he loves having that background. That could put him in the mix for the strong side linebacker job, or at least make him valuable in different packages. For a defense that needs depth, communication, and athletes who do not panic when an offense shifts formations, that detail is important. I'm not turning OTAs into a coronation, but when the coach is speaking this way, when the player is showing up every morning to get aligned, and when another player's injury creates snaps right in the middle of the defense, there is a signal here. Jalen Graham may be moving from a background roster name into an option the staff genuinely wants to test. The third story moves into a different space because this is not about the back end of the roster or defensive depth. This is about national respect. ESPN's Seth Walder put Brock Purdy on a very early top 10 list of MVP candidates for 2026. And yes, Purdy sits at the back of that line at number 10. But the ranking itself is not what matters most. What matters is that his name is back in the conversation. That return is not random. Walder pointed to a number that deserves attention. Whenever Purdy has been on the field, the production has been strong. His 69.7 QBR over the last 4 seasons ranks behind only Josh Allen. That kind of statistic frustrates a lot of people because it pushes against the lazy claim that Purdy is just a passenger in the system. If it were really that easy, any quarterback placed in Kyle Shanahan's offense would produce at that level. The NFL has shown us over and over that it simply does not work that way. There is a real debate underneath this. Walder mentioned Shanahan's offense itself could hurt Purdy in the voting because some voters see the system as too big a piece of the success. Then you get the comparison with Matthew Stafford under Sean McVay or Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson. I understand the offensive structure argument, but I do not buy the habit of using the 49ers system as an automatic deduction against Purdy. When the offense is rolling, people credit Shanahan. When the pressure arrives, they blame Purdy like he is supposed to solve everything on his own. Pick a lane. Still, defending the Niners does not mean turning off critical thinking. For Purdy to become a real MVP finalist, he has to be more than efficient. He has to be the visible engine behind the wins. In 2024, he was near that conversation with a roster full of all pros around him. In 2026, if he wants to move from a back-end candidate to a serious name, he needs to clean up those moments where he holds the ball too long, protect possessions better, and turn huge games into a national argument. The encouraging part is that the situation could help him. The material points to a revamped wide receiver room led by Mike Evans, and if that group brings space, physicality, and trust, Purdy will have a chance to play cleaner football. But the inside read that matters is this. In Santa Clara, MVP probably is not the goal written on the wall. The goal is to stack wins again, control the NFC, and make January run through red and gold. The individual award becomes a consequence if this team dominates. So I see this ESPN list as a message. Purdy still must prove he can command the narrative, not just appear in it. But it is also way past time to stop talking about the 49ers quarterback like he is some statistical accident. Niners faithful, tell me in the comments, if Purdy leads this team to a dominant season, do you think the league finally gives him the respect he keeps having to take by force? And to close the news run, we get a story that might look smaller if you only read the headline. But inside the locker room, it carries a different kind of weight. Kaelon Black is already starting to earn praise too early to ignore. The running back out of Indiana was taken by the 49ers in the 3rd round of the 2026 draft at pick 90 overall, and plenty of people pushed back because they thought he could have been drafted much later. That criticism does not disappear in May or June. It only disappears when the player hits the field and becomes a problem for defenses. But the first internal noise is positive. Kyle Juszczyk already said on the Rich Eisen show that Black impressed him physically, calling the rookie absolutely jacked. That gets my attention because Juszczyk is not just another voice in that offense. He knows Kyle Shanahan's standard. He knows protection details, reads, run fits, timing. When a veteran like that looks at a rookie and notices something, I store that away. Then Christian McCaffrey added an even more important layer. CMC said Black is eager to learn, that the two have already had conversations outside practice about things McCaffrey is seeing, and he pointed out that the rookie corrects mistakes quickly once he is coached. That is the line that hits me. Because in OTAs, without pads, you do not prove you are going to break tackles in December. But you do prove whether you listen, whether you process, and whether you come back better on the next rep. And McCaffrey called Black a true football player. For a young running back entering the 49ers offense, that is gold. Running hard alone is not enough. You must understand angles, patience, blitzes, motion, blocking reads, and still survive in a system that demands precision. Black also knows Shanahan and the front office took heat for that pick. He has already talked about that pressure. So the motivation is obvious. Turn a question selection into proof that Santa Clara noticed something before everyone else did. We are still in OTAs, and veteran praise this time of year always needs some caution. But think about the other side. We could be hearing concern, slow learning, struggle, or hesitation. That is not what is coming out. What is coming from inside the building is a physical rookie who is locked in, coachable, and hungry. For a criticized pick, that is exactly the first step you hope to hear. I come out of this script with one clear read. The 49ers are not standing still. They are testing every spot where they can create more margin. I see Ashtyn Davis arriving as a warning sign in the secondary. I see Jalen Graham as the kind of name that can grow quietly until he becomes real value. I see Purdy back on the national radar, still needing to turn statistical respect into a dominant campaign. And I see Kaelon Black trying to change the conversation before the pads even come on. To me, that is the point. Contenders do not live only on massive headlines. They live on details being solved. If you want to follow this inside track with me, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment which one of these 4 stories moved you the most.